Okay, just hit the recorder. Hopefully that works for us.
Okay.
All right, so what's the style of your documentation now? Do you use SOAP notes when you write up a new injury or something like that?
With the paper and pencil, yeah, we're basically using kind of a soap note form. So when we were using Healthy Athlete, it does the. Have you heard of Healthy Athlete?
I've heard of Healthy Roster. That this is a different one.
Yeah, it's different. It's by Cerner. It was used by NBA, NHL, whatever. We started using it probably 10, 11 years ago, in the very infancy of the program. And so it was really financially advantage to the high school to use it at that point because it was very inexpensive. And so that was nice, and it had a lot of functionalities with it and stuff like that. So it basically had a body there you would click through and tell the different injuries. It would populate everything. It does a lot of similarities to what your guys' stuff does as well. So, and actually, your guys' has way more capabilities. That's why when we saw your guys' um, software, it was like, oh man, you guys it has access, so the student athlete has access to be able to enter things and stuff like that, and that was very nice, and just it had a lot more user friendly stuff, especially in the COVID era, that allows us to do more than what we were able to do before. So.
Okay. All right. Well, when you first log in, if you have any alerts, they'll be up top here. So if you started a SOAP note a week ago, for example, and didn't sign it and lock it, it's still unresolved, then you will see some alerts. Our system also tracks if you loan out crutch coolers or things like that. So if there is anything that hasn't been returned on your equipment loan out list, that's what that alert means there. And then any records that you haven't touched for a while, to give them some attention. So the recent history is going to show the last 10 records that you've been involved with, and we're going to go down. I don't know if you watched The Office, but there's some characters here from The Office.
Yep.
So Mike Scott, if we were to enter a new injury record, you have basically three options, and one is called the guided SOAP, one is called the open SOAP, and one is called the short note. So if I'm going to select an injury for Mike Scott, let's just go to foot and ankle. These are the three choices here, and this depends on your style and the level of detail. So the guided SOAP is going to have a lot of check boxes for range of motion, special tests, things like that. And if you're interested in really doing a very thorough documentation of all your different special tests and evaluation techniques, then that will be the one for you. But if you want something shorter, like just typing in some narrative information, then that will be the open SOAP, and that's just more for typing up your examination in a narrative format.
Does the guided SOAP allow you to put in additional information?
Oh yeah.
Is there? Okay.
My internet for some reason has been acting slow this morning. Okay. All right. So when we get to the guided SOAP here, this is your, so you have 4 tabs at the top for your SOAP note. So if we're in the subjective tab, we just say it's his right ankle, his pain level is a 5 out of 10, and just say he inverted his ankle. And if we go to objective, let's just say he's point tender to ATFL. You could type that in, and then these are all the check boxes I mentioned. So if he's got some limping, partial weight bearing, or swelling, you can check those off. And then there's always areas for additional comments. And then The range of motion, again, this is more checkbox oriented. So if flexion was painful or is limited to 5 degrees, you could type in different specific things like that. And the strength testing, 3 out of 5, 5 out of 5 for these different things. Neurological, we'll just click off within normal limits for neurological. And then your special tests, we'll just say is anterior Doris positive, is Kliger's negative, is percussion's negative. And then again, comments. And then if you hit this little arrow here, that just brings you back to the top. And then when you get into assessment, let's just say we're going to call this a grade 1 lateral ankle sprain. You can type your jargon, medical jargon, in the assessment box, but you want to select an injury type from the drop down here that's more in lay terms, because when you run a coach's report, it's going to pick up how you're labeling it in this drop down here. It's not going to pick up your jargon of your medical diagnosis. So that way it keeps things simple for reports when you send them to coaches. So you want to label the injury down here. And this list is customizable. If there's something that we forgot to put in, I noticed the other day we didn't put in tooth fracture. But you know, something a little like that, you can customize a lot of our drop downs in your account. And then in the plan section, let's say you're going to do some cryotherapy, you're going to do some rehab exercises, and then their status. So let's just say he's limited. You also can track physician referrals. We have some organizations that really track this as an important thing. So you can run reports and things like that. But you can customize your whoever your common doctors that you send kids to, you can customize this list here if you would like to do that, and then your referral date. So you can run referral reports to see how many kids you're referring, and it'll give a percentage of how many injuries you evaluate and a percentage of how many get referred. And any communication, you know, if you notify the parent by phone, you notify the coach. Now, some states have a requirement to indicate estimated treatment frequency and duration and return to sport and setting goals. So this section here you can skip if you want, but some states, the rules and regs require this, so that's why it's in here. And then if you want an easy measurable goal, it's picking up to 6. We picked out from the subjective area to a 3. Let's say by next week, that would be an easy measurable goal for you. And back to the top. So now, let's say you're done your SOAP note. You saved it. This is not really making it permanent yet. This is just saving it for later. You can still edit this note. You can still delete this note. But once you sign and lock it, it makes it permanent. So ultimately, you do want to sign your record. So sometimes what I do is if I look at an ankle and I'm not quite sure what I'm doing with it yet, I might do a little wait and see to the next day, see if any swelling developed. I might not sign it right away. If I'm on the fence if I'm going to refer that athlete or not, I might wait to the next day to sign it. So that could be something you occasionally do too. But once you are ready to sign and lock it, you do so by entering in your password here, and that would make the record permanent.
Okay. If you don't sign and lock it, but you have saved it, will it bring it to the ones that are the current at the very beginning of that first page?
Yeah, any new activity will be picked up there. But if I go back to Mike Scott's history, you'll notice this record here with the X and the unlocked is the one I just made. So I can actually still delete this record. These other ones are locked. This record here, he's been discharged from this injury, so it'll tell you if they've been discharged. It'll be orange if you need to give that record attention. And just to show you, I'm going to delete that SOAP note I just created there, and that's gone. I'm going to go back to another one here that was written on 113. Once you sign and lock a record, this More tab will appear. That wasn't there with an unsigned. When you click the More tab, you get all these options on the left. And we could spend a lot of time on each of them, but I'm just going to summarize them real quickly. I don't know. Are you using any PROMs or patient-reported outcome measures?
No, not really.
Okay. So this is one of the things that the profession has been emphasizing us to do is using these prompts not only to track progress of the patient, but also to demonstrate your treatment efficiency. So one of the things we have in here are these patient questionnaires, and you can actually text this to the patient. Previously, before COVID, we would just like a lot of times just hand the iPad or the computer over to the athlete. But now, obviously, we're trying to minimize sharing devices. So we,
All right.
you can send this to the patient by text. So they get this questionnaire. It's about function and activities of daily living. So are they having pain with sitting in class or kneeling or walking on even ground, on and off a curb, getting in and out of a car, sleeping? So this is a good way to check in with your athlete to see how they're doing, because a lot of times when you have a quick conversation with them, you don't uncover some of this level of detail. One time, I remember doing a patient questionnaire, not realizing one of the athletes was having trouble with ankle stiffness, still like 4 or 5 weeks out after their injury. So we gave them something to do to improve on that. It's also asked their return to play readiness, which is always interesting to see where they're coming from, their pain level, changes since last visit, and their progress and activity level and what they think they can handle right now. So this is self-scored on a scale up to 100%. So let's say they score 65%. You can send that to the coach to show their responses to things or why they're not ready. And then you can also repeat that in a week and see how they're up to 85%. And that shows your treatment is effective, and it's showing that they're progressing. So that is patient questionnaire. You can also add progress notes. Here's one that was done previously. Mike's pain is a 2 out of 10 today. Began the bike, light rehab. It's going to say added by and whoever the athletic trainer was. And then if you needed to email this, like with many of our records, you can just click this little mail icon. You can create an address book that has all your coaches, so they're in there. And this is a secure way of emailing. We do have an email system within ATGenius that's secure, but it's going to have their information, their progress notes, and then your signature and your credentials and license number at the bottom with anything that you email to anyone. Once you clear the athlete, you can add a discharge note. So the one's already been done, but some states require a reason for discharge, so we put the most common reasons here, for example, pain reduced or past functional test, and that way they can indicate that with their rules and regs, but you can choose their status. Let's say he's a full go, discharged, and then you could, if you're late writing this discharge, like I am, usually once I clear somebody, I'm usually behind a couple days in discharging them, but you can backdate it, and it'll calculate their time loss based on the date, and then you can sign and lock that record. Several other things you can do in the more. If you decide later to refer an athlete, like you looked at that ankle, you decided not to refer, you signed and locked it, and now 5 days later they're not really getting better and you decide to refer, you can do the referral note here after the fact. The follow-up is to document any conversations that you've had with parents or local physicians. Many of our ideas that we have come from people like yourselves who use the system and say, hey, can you add this or that? So the follow-up note was an idea shared by someone where if you're going to speak with the mother or father, things like that, you can document your conversations in the follow-up note.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
We do have treatment sign-in where the athletes can sign in themselves, but if someone forgets and you want to manually add them yourself, you can do that here. Print and send reports. The watch pile idea is, for example, someone has shin pain and you're going to call it medial tibial stress syndrome, but you want to keep an eye on them for a stress fracture brewing. So maybe you want to add that athlete to your watch pile so a week later a reminder pops up and says, hey, don't forget to check on so-and-so's shin. Because that happens to me all the time where we lose contact with kids that have shin pain.
All
and
right.
end up with a stress fracture because they never followed up with us or we didn't follow up with them. So um, that's the watch pile idea. AdView Media is where you attach doctor's notes to their records. So you can scan them into your computer and attach them. At my school, we are completely paperless at this point. If we get a doctor's note back, we scan it, attach it to the record, we put it in a to be shredded file, and we have, we call them job coaching students, some special education students that come down into the athletic training facility once or twice a week to do some different jobs like fold towels or stock the taping shelves, and one of their jobs is to take the shred pile. They really like to do that, so they take care of that for us, and we don't do any paper filing anymore. Are you guys doing much rehab at school?
Yeah, we do a fair amount of rehab.
Okay, so you might like our rehab card. This is where you can create a list of exercises for the athlete, and they can access this on their phone. So if I go to edit rehab, you can see how there's a few exercises here. If I wanted to add a new one, let's just say eversion with TheraBand, and maybe they're using the red one, and they're going to do 3 sets of 15. You can upload videos. Our system does not come with videos yet at this time, but if you found something on YouTube that's a good little demonstration of how to do eversion properly, you can just pop that link in here, and then that link will be accessible to the athlete when they're doing their exercise. But I'm going to click exercise, and you can see eversion with TheraBand is here. And then you can give them an account where they log in on their phone. It's going to have their list of exercises, and they can check them off as they complete them, and it's going to have a date and time stamp. And then you can look back and see all of their rehab card completions. You can set rehab goals that will show for them on their rehab card, like work up to 3 sets of 20 on your straight leg raises by next week or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then you can create rehab card templates that are ready to go in advance. So you don't have to create a new one for every ankle sprain you see. You have a template ready to go, and then you can pull that in and maybe just tweak it a little bit for each athlete. So you can spend a little time in advance creating different rehab card templates there.
Yeah.
And then if you do a reevaluation of an injury, you can do that. And then if you make a mistake and lock a record, we don't really like to do this a lot because there's some liability with it. But if you needed to request that we unlock a record so you can go back in and make some adjustments, we do that, but we do require some justification because our concern is someone potentially unlocking a record to cover something up or hide something. So we're always concerned about that, but the option is there if there's a change in diagnosis or something like that where you need to request that unlock. We can do that there.
Okay. But that's something you guys would have to do from your end, not our end, right?
Well, you would request it, and then we would review the reason and then approve or not approve it.
Okay.
So we'll go to Jim Halpert. I just want to show you if we're adding a new injury for Jim, and let's just say we're going to do the knee. By the way, there's an emergency care section, so if you have an emergency that you need to document, I just want to jump into this real quick just to show you that this is here. This is going to have more of an incident description, patient presentation where they alert and oriented, their medical history, the EMS when they were activated, their vital signs, other diagnostic signs, Glasgow Coma Scale, and care provided, who accompanied the patient to the hospital. So that's a special area for emergency care. But I'm going to go back to Jim Halpert and pick knee, and I want to show you the open soap. Now, this is what I tend to use more personally, but any new injury, you always come up to this screen where you pick their sport and sport level and things like that. You can skip all of this except the date if you want. If you're out on the field and you're using your phone to do the injury record and you kind of just want to get into it right away, you can skip these things. But I would recommend that you go back later and fill them in, because when you want to run reports later of how many baseball injuries there were and football injuries, it's going to pick up the information that you selected here. So
Okay.
you won't have data to pull from if you skip it. All right, so we're into Jim Halpert's knee injury. We'll say it's his right knee, pain 4 out of 10, and let's just say he took a valgus blow to his knee to keep it really short. So here's the main difference. Under objective, there's no check boxes or anything like this. So you could put here point tender, MCL, full knee range of motion, negative valgus stress test, and then we'll say negative Lockman's. So in other words, you're basically typing out your findings instead of going through check boxes, and some people prefer this because they feel it's shorter for them. And then the assessment is the same thing. So we'll just call this a grade 1 MCL sprain. And again, we're going to pick, for simplicity, for coaches reports, a simple injury type from the drop down. And then the plan section is a little shorter in the open soap. So maybe we're going to do ice, e-stim, bike, and let's say he's out for right now. Communication, same idea here. If you're referred, we'll put no, and then again save for later, or sign and lock. So I will say though, if you're in the middle of writing a soap note and you need to walk away, make sure you hit save, because the system will log you out after a few minutes of sitting idle because of security. That's a HIPAA security thing. So be careful if you walk away from it. Just hit save so you don't lose anything.
Right.
And then finally, so we'll go to Jules Granger. I'm going to show you one third way of adding a new injury is the short note. So let's say you had a lower leg contusion, and it's not really worth getting into a full soap note, but you want to document it. You hit short note, same introductory screen, and hit next. And the short note is just that, a one-pager to describe a very minor injury without getting into too much detail. So you got your communication, your participation status, your injury type, and you would just put a brief explanation here of what happened. So I use this more for contusions or minor things, and that's the short note.
So all these people that you're doing notes on, they're already kind of populated in there. Is that something you can do beforehand? Like you actually put the patients or the student athletes in there so that it's easy just to find them and then do that? Or is it something that we do at the time when you're doing the injury and stuff?
You can do either. Believe it or not, I tend to add them as they come in.
Okay.
My style has been, we have iPads with keyboards. So the style has been, we give them an iPad while they come in and say, here, create your account. And that buys me some time. Well, if I'm busy treating 3 or 4 other kids, I use it as a time buyer. So they're making their account, and it takes them a few minutes, and then I can get back to them. But if you want to put them in advance, you can do that. So under account options, you can go to athlete student import. So if you have a CSV file from an Excel document or something like that, you can import all the athletes yourself, or you can send the file to us and we can do it for you. So that's 2 ways you can do it. The other way is you can send out an email to your athletes on how to create an account themselves, and they can do that. Or sometimes, I know in colleges, they've met with individual teams, and all the kids had their phones, and they just walked them through creating an account on the spot in a meeting as well. If
I
you,
mean, do you find that saves time later down the road, or like you said, I mean, you were saying that it gives you time to kind of prepare or whatever. I mean, like if you feel like one way or the other kind of gives you an advantage or not, or
yeah, I think most of our people that use it prefer to have things in advance.
okay,
Yeah, I think that most of the time they do it one of those ways. If I click on Jules Granger here and I go to view edit, this is called the athlete portal. So if you have an athlete who is creating an account, and we can give you instructions that you can share with athletes, we have those already done. So
okay,
if they're creating an account, this is everything that they see. And you would want to specify to them what information they want to fill out, you want filled out. So you can tell athlete info, fill out these fields, and then parent guardian info. They would fill out this. I don't know if you're going to have insurance info. A lot of our colleges want insurance info in there and even a copy of the insurance card because if
hmm
they're on the road and need to go to the hospital, the coach can access this information with their insurance card and insurance information um, in the college setting. Their physical, they can upload their physical, medical information. I don't know. What do you use for preseason documents in terms of athlete registration? Are you using Family ID or something like that?
we're getting ready to use called Privet. They're doing we're our AD and his secretary are getting ready to implement that. It does all the preseason stuff.
Okay. Well, our system does that as well. So if you had documents that the parent needed to electronically sign or acknowledge that they've read, or if you wanted to create a fillable PDF for their physical, they could access that here, basically download it, fill it out, re-upload it, and then you have all your preseason documents. And we have a system set up where if the parent is electronically signing the document, there will be a text message that goes to their phone to verify that it's them, and they sign it. Also in here is COVID screening. I don't know if you're going to use the COVID screening or not, but I just wanted to let you know that's available, and this is how the athlete would take the COVID screening. And a phone pass gets sent to their phone and shows that they've completed it that day. So if they needed to walk into practice and show that they've completed the questionnaire and they're good, that message would come to their phone.
Okay, so this kind of brings up another question I know Dan and I've talked about is that do you guys have um, like a concussion symptom score sheet that we can send them or that they can fill out daily and like do it from their phone so that they have access to that? Do you guys have that capability?
Yes. So let me show you a concussion. So I'm going to go to. I always pick my daughter for my. So my daughter Miranda watches the Kardashians. So she's the
Nice.
Miranda Kardashian. Okay. All right. So if you're going to do a concussion, are you using SCAT right now?
Um, we use a version of SCAT, yes.
Okay. So let's say we're going to add a concussion evaluation. You have three choices here. You can use the concussion eval in our system, which is very SCAT-like. If you did a paper SCAT, you can upload that. Or if you have a situation where a kid was concussed on a Friday night at an away game and they saw their doctor over the weekend and maybe now it's Tuesday or Wednesday before you see them for the first time and they've already been evaluated and they present a note that they're concussed and you need to do the return to play, you might not do a SCAT at that point so far out. So you can upload that doctor's note to get started. So you have to do one of these three things to move forward from this screen.
Okay.
So concussion eval, same thing here with the information. And then you can pick where they had their impact. And this little diagram here was, again, one of our users' ideas, not ours. And then you come up with a similar look as a SOAP note with their history, signs and symptoms, exam, assessment plan. So this is the history section here. The signs and symptoms, so if they're answering questions slowly or they're got that vacant stare. There's symptoms. I'm just going to check off a handful of them so you can see. They're scored 1 through 6 like you're probably used to.
Mm-hmm.
And that is signs and symptoms. And then their exam section has everything under the sun that you could possibly want. You don't need to use all of it, but these are just, what day of the week it is, who you're playing today. If you wanted to use those questions, you have your 5-word recall here. All your balance things, you can write their errors. They had 3 errors or 4 errors on the different balance tests. The concentration with munch backwards, numbers backwards, cranial nerves, VOMs. And again, none of this is required. You can just pick and choose what sections you want to use. So this is the VOMs with the smooth eye pursuits and all those things. There's a space for a neck examination. And then your delayed memory questions here. So that's the exam tab. Assessment is the same as the others. And then, then your plan section. So we'll say they need to return to play protocol. They are out. We'll say their physician referrals are yes, or seeing Dr. Davis. And everyone you notified. So if you notified guidance, maybe you're going to notify guidance to the school nurse about your concussion and the parent. That is your concussion eval. Now, getting back to your question, I want to find an older concussion record. So back to Miranda. All right, I'm going to go back to this concussion eval for 13. Same idea where this more tab appears. And the symptom checklist is here. So it's going to have every time they do a symptom checklist, it's going to be here. So dated, who did it, there's going to be a red check if they have the symptom, a green check if they don't have the symptom, and then a score 1 through 6. And if you want to do a new one, click Add Symptom Checklist. This is if you're handing them a device in person, or you could send that to their phone. So you just make sure you have the right cell phone number in there, and that will send them a message to complete the questionnaire. But this is basically what it's going to look like on their phone, where they just check off their head pressure.
Can things be emailed, or is it all text?
To the patient, right now we have only text messages set up. I don't think email would be a big deal to add that. You could email this symptom checklist, like everything else. If you needed to send this, it's going to have every date and every symptom, for example. But in terms of the athlete filling it out, it's all text-based. But if that's something important to you guys, we can look at adding that. Under the More tab is also, you can do a cranial nerve evaluation, and you can document your return to play protocol. So how are you guys doing that right now?
That's all basically paper stuff.
Okay. So I'm going to select that. So this one's pretty much already completed, where you can put your step 1. They had rest, no physical activity. Step 2, they did the bike for 10 minutes. But if we were to add a new step, let's just say today she's doing her step 4, and she's doing her, let's just say, non-contact practice. By the way, this strap down here is customizable. So if you don't do the bike or you do something different for your steps, you can change these. But let's just say she's up to her non-contact practice. She had no symptoms. You can save this for later. We're going to say you're sending her off to practice, and you say, see me afterwards to confirm you've been symptom-free. You can save for later. And then ultimately, you need to sign and lock it. So the concussion steps individually must be signed and locked. And the reason we have that, because there's so much liability with concussions for us, we want you to sign and lock individual concussion records or individual concussion return to play steps.
Can you set up these steps a format? Always, you have to individually each time put in what you're doing.
Well,
We have
each time you'd have to select from this drop down, but you could type out in the account section the different things. Like normally, in my room, I have a treadmill. So those for step 3, we'll have them run 15 minutes on the treadmill, and then we'll do some agility ladders. So that's kind of just how I write that out. So that part can be out, but you always have to select from the drop down here.
Okay.
So under the More tab, there are similar choices as I showed you in the SOAP note with your discharge note, your progress note, and sending reports and things like that. All right, so that's the evaluation end. Any questions before we move on to treatment sign-in?
Not for me, no.
Okay.
No.
Now, are you guys using some form of treatment sign-in?
Yeah.
Yes.
We do have a paper document, and then that's what we also document with the spreadsheet I was talking about earlier.
Okay. So I do want to show you in account options. I'm going to go down to treatment sign-in. This is where you can customize your list of treatments. So if there's things in the default that you're not doing, or if there's something like, let's say you're doing cupping and cupping's not in the original list, you can customize everything here. You can add a treatment value, and our system comes with built-in treatment values, but at the end of the season, if you wanted to show you did $30,000 worth of treatments, that would have been comparable to, if the athletes had to get that at PT or things like that through insurance, you can show your value that way. But the main reason I was in here is to show you this QR code. So this code here, I would recommend you print this out and hang it up on your wall. And this works very well with the high school students. We have 3 or 4 of them up on our walls, and they hold their phone up to it, their camera, and it takes them right to the treatment sign-in page.
Oh, nice.
And I'm going to show you what it looks like for them. So I'm going to go to a fresh page. Okay. So I'm on the main page, and I click treatment sign-in. Now, prior to COVID, we would have an iPad mounted on the wall, and all the athletes would come in and use the same iPad and sign in. Now we've moved to the QR code, and we actually would have an iPad in an OtterBox that we would pass around, so as they were getting taped or treated, they could all just sign in on the same iPad. But now that we have this QR code, they scan it, they come right to this page when they scan it. And you're going to set a school code. So whatever your mascot is, what's your mascot at your school?
A panther.
Okay, so let's say you call it Panther or Panthers for your school code. You can set that in your account. But in this test account, it's Bulldogs. And I'm going to enter my son's information, Tyler Smith. And he's a little too old now to be a high schooler, but I remember his birth date. We're going to go 21095. So I'm Tyler Smith as an athlete signing in. And this is basically information I need to fill out. If I'm a twin, there's a special way to enter twin records, but it will show up which one are you once you start to sign in with the same birth date. So I'm signing in. I'm choosing my sport. I'm a baseball player. And I'm in for my foot and ankle. And this is what signing looks like for them at the very top. If they're in for the same thing every day, they can just click repeat my selections from yesterday and be in and out. You can add items to the quick list at the top, which are common things, so they don't have to scroll as much. If they're in for routine things, you can add a few things up there. But otherwise, they're going to have to scroll through here. So the red titles you cannot change, but anything within the red, underneath the red titles in those sections, you can change. So we had, if he was in for ankle taping, we would check off this. Again, some of these are defaults, but if you're not using compression units or whatever, but let's say he was in for intermittent compression, he was in for whirlpool, if he was in for doing some rehab exercises, maybe he did some functional activities and balance activities, things like that. And then once he's done, he would just click sign in, and he's done. I want to go back to I'm logged back in now as the athletic trainer. If I'm on the main screen, I would click treatment sign in. His sign in would now show. So back in the day, I've been doing this a long time. I used to have a clipboard at the front door where kids would sign in and check off everything they did. This is kind of the idea here, where you would have a list of everybody who signed in for the day and their date, the time, and what they checked off. And you can review this every day. Ideally, I don't usually get to it till every third or fourth day, but you can review these and approve them. So let's say we go to Tyler Smith. I can actually edit this sign in. So if he was also in, you know what, Tyler also, he got some ultrasound on his ankle. He skipped that, so I can click ultrasound. I can fix it, put any comments, and hit save. And ultimately, you want to approve your treatments. So you can click approve treatments here. Let's just say there's a list of 20 of them over the day. You click select all, and then approve selected. And that's going to wipe your clipboard clean. Now what happens is all those individual sign-ins go to their personal records. So if I'm going to search Tyler Smith, I'm going to go to him here. I'm going to click on his individual treatment history, and this will now show every time he's been in. So the clipboard is more of a temporary thing that you can review your daily treatments, but you ultimately should approve them, so it assigns them all to their individual records, and it has his total patient visits for his entire career and treatment. So if you receive 5 treatments in one visit, that's why these numbers are different. So that's why the patient treatments are much higher. And if you needed to send this to somebody, you could. If they completed a rehab card, it's going to have a little rehab note here, and then you can click that and see their rehab card for the day. All right, so that's treatment sign-in, and it's pretty easy to use, and you just got to reinforce with the athletes to scan their QR code when they're done their treatment.
When you send the athlete a rehab card, they can check off that they did it, and does that come back to us? I guess we just saw it. Is that what they did? Did they check off?
Yes.
Okay.
And when you go into their file, you can see the rehab card. So if Tyler had, I'm not sure which one he has a rehab card for out of all these. I'd be guessing, but this knee, I want to say he doesn't have one for the knee. Hold on a second. You would go to more rehab card. If he has one, you can see it here in his file, and then you can click View History, and this would show all the times he completed his rehab card. And this is where you would edit it, and this is where you would deactivate it. So a patient can only have one rehab card. So if he gets a new injury a month from now, you'd have to deactivate this rehab card and do a new one for the other injury.
So on those SOAP notes, I missed the first little part of this, and there's 3 different types. Can you go back to those?
Sure.
Because there's a short one, and then a longer general. Okay, so.
Yep. So I click Mike Scott. I'm going to click Attribute. I'm going to click my body part area. So the guided SOAP is the detailed one with all the check boxes. It's going to have your lock,
Okay.
your value stress test, your range of motion check boxes for a very detailed approach. The open SOAP is more of a narrative approach, where it's shorter. I generally think it's faster. And the short note is for the minor injury. Did you want me to open up one of these?
No, I just kind of wanted a quick general overlook like that. So that's cool.
Okay. You guys see yourself doing reports, like coaches' reports and things like that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and definitely like the end of the season report and or the one that we can get the value out of for a school board at the end of the year.
Okay. So for the coaches' report, I'm just going to leave it on all sports, but you can pinpoint, what you want here. The date range, I'm just going to back this up a little bit to grab some data. This might end up being a giant coach's report. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like here. It's going to have their name here. If you work at a big high school like me, 2,000 students, the name here, and I'm not sure who the heck it is. So this is actually a link back to the athlete in case, oh yeah, that's who that is. So it's going to have their injury date. The injury type was from the drop down. And, well, he's got a concussion, but it's not muscle strain. But you get the idea. You can, if you forget to select an injury type, you can do it on the fly here. Their status, their treatment compliance, and then any comments. And let's just say Jim Halpert, his treatment compliance is poor. This happens a lot sometimes with the football players that haven't seen in 2 weeks. And let's say you wanted to highlight someone to stand out to the coach. I'm going to pick green here. So any changes you made, make sure you click update before you send it. Anyway, it's going to highlight that athlete if you want someone to stand out to your coach.
Is that emailed to them?
Yes.
Okay.
So then when you're all done here, this one's kind of incomplete, but if you click for it's going to come up really sharp looking like this, right? So it's going to have nice columns, and it's going to have your signature and everything. The main thing I would make sure of is to make sure your IT department knows that ATGenius emails should not be viewed as junk. Sometimes, initially at a school, ATGenius emails are ending up in junk folders, so you might have to educate people to treat it not as junk.
Yeah. So our IT department and stuff, a lot of our school doesn't really like us to do the text messages. So you said that we could transfer, send out emails to the kids.
Well, it's more text-based, so some of those things, that questionnaires that are filled out are text-based, but I will say that the texting, I don't, if the concern is, you texting students, and I get that, the text messages, one, they cannot reply to it. It does not reveal your cell phone number or anything like that, so it's one
Because it comes directly from the ATGenius, right? There's no, I mean, that's the only interaction it is. So
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I like those questionnaires. I'm going to use that a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so injury statistics report is another one I'll show you. I'm just going to back this up a little bit. This could be an end of the season, and there's only 9 records in here. You're going to have pie charts here of how many baseball injuries, lacrosse injuries, things like that, and the field locations and the injured areas and things like that. So if you want to just show how many injuries you saw and the different types, you can do that. And then the other one you mentioned was the treatment statistics report.
Yep.
Here. And I don't know if we have a whole lot of treatments in here, but I'll see if we can grab some. Let's see here. All right, so it's going to say how many rehabilitative exercise sessions that were done and the treatment value. And these treatment values are customizable in account. I did some research with some PT facilities and CMS to come up with these prices, but you can edit them. So this is basically saying that we did $581 worth of treatments. The treatment history report, sadly, I had to use. I was just diagnosed with COVID 2 weeks ago, and I had to figure out who was in the room during specific times.
Right.
So I had to use this. Unfortunately, treatment history report is going to say every time somebody was in the room on a specific date.
Oh, wow.
I think I probably got it from an athlete, but I don't know. Okay, so these are all the reports. If you're doing COVID screenings, you can run reports. This patient care summary, we are not quite done. This is a new one. This is to show any open records and a running summary of, let's say you pick this past week. It will show any non-discharged athletes and the treatments that they received one by one. We had a large group out of Cincinnati Children's Hospital that requested this because they need to send this to their supervisor. So basically it's a running patient care summary of what's happening in a specific week and treatments that were provided. Do you plan to give coaches access to your system?
Not necessarily, no. More just giving them reports and stuff like that, I think would be what we would use it for.
Okay. If you wanted, as I mentioned earlier, they can access emergency information or they can run their own reports. But if you prefer to generate the reports and send that to them, then that's, I think, what a lot of people do. Under equipment loan, this is the area I mentioned before where if you're loaning out crutches or a knee immobilizer and you want to track that stuff, again, this is customizable, the list here. And before we get to account, I just want to show you daily journal. This is like a notebook style way of documenting, and there are injuries in here, but this is not really designed for injuries. This is more for documenting situations. Let's say you give a talk to your wrestling team about skin prevention and you want to document that. Or you noticed a hole in the soccer field and you told maintenance 3 times about it and you want to kind of document and cover yourself that you did that. This is an area that you could just put situations down if you want. Back in 2005, we had the unfortunate event where we had a visiting football player during an August scrimmage sustain a C5 fracture. And I remember, unfortunately, we had to give the young man CPR on the field. He survived the incident, but died about a year later from complications. But, of course, after the injury was the lawsuit, and everybody was asking what could have been done to prevent this injury and was anything documented. So one of the things I learned from that incident was if you're doing a talk to your football team about don't hit with your head, proper tackling technique, reporting concussions, or you show them a video or any preventative thing that you did to prevent a catastrophic injury, it would be a good idea to document that. In the event of a lawsuit, you can say, here are some steps we took, and these are documented to prevent that injury. They were looking for everything, even from coaches' lesson plans on when they taught proper tackling technique and things like that. So, unfortunately, a lot of times there's a lack of documentation with things like that. So back to main menu. If we click patient list, these are just different ways to sort. So you can sort by who's not discharged, discharged by sport. You can even sort by athletic trainer. So if you just want to see all the injuries you personally evaluated, you can do that there. But I did want to spend a few minutes on account. Are you guys okay on time right now?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you click account options, this is where you would enter your information. If you're taking care of middle school athletes, you want to make sure you check that, because that way middle school grades will appear in the drop down when you're selecting a grade level. And that is important to select a grade level for an athlete, because at the end of their career, it'll automatically archive them once they're beyond a senior. It'll still be in the system. Our records are kept. We tell people records are kept for 7 years, but really they never go away. So you can access them later. But you want to put your credentials in and your password and things like that. But if I click account options, these are all the areas where you want to spend some time customizing your account. So the address book is where you would enter all your coaches in advance, and you can text message coaches, reports, and things like that, and or email them. I already mentioned where you could import athletes. If you decide to do it yourself, if you click View Field List, these are all the things that we can import from a CSV file. So you just want to check those and make sure they match up. But again, if you need us to do it, let us know. The ATGenius school code is where you would make that so kids have ability to sign in. If you were adding coaches and staff, it doesn't sound like you're doing that, but some schools use ATGenius for doing COVID screenings of their teachers and coaches. So, or giving administrators ability to run COVID screening reports and things like that. So that's where you would handle all that. The concussion activities is where you would customize your drop down for what you're doing for your concussion steps that we talked about earlier. The system does keep track of everything that was emailed. This is where you can customize your equipment loan manager selections. And then all these areas here are where you would customize your field locations, like if you have a specific name of a stadium or lower turf field or baseball field. This is all where you customize that area for your drop downs. This is the default list for injury types from that drop down for coaches, reports, and things like that. So again, if we forgot something like, I don't know, maybe like I said, we forgot tooth fracture, but if there's something you come across, you can just add it in there. Patient messages. This tracks all the patient messages that were sent and when. And I do want to show you one more thing about that. If you're going to use the preseason documents, this is where you would upload your preseason documents for parents to sign or download. Your referral providers is here, so the doctors that you send kids to, you can add your doctor names in here or your physician practices here.
So do you think, so we are going to be using this Privet, or the administration is, would we be able to bring over our physical forms from Privet into this, as well as the patient, student athletes information, possibly?
Well, student athlete information, if you can get that CSV file, an Excel document with those field names, yes, you could import those. Yeah. The physicals would probably have to be uploaded individually to the records, though.
Okay.
So that could be a little more tedious for you, but it could be done where you can attach their physicals into their profile.
Okay.
Rehab card template is where you would create your templates in advance. Your reminder days, this is set for 7 days, meaning that if you start a SOAP note and don't sign it, after 7 days goes by, a reminder will pop up that you have an unsigned SOAP note that you need to finish. If you have a non-discharged athlete and you have not poked around in their file for a week or longer, it will send you an alert that that record needs attention. You can change this to 14 days, 8 days, whatever you want, or if you want to turn it off completely, you just put 0. You can add your school logo to appear on your emails. And below here is where you would customize your sport level, things like that. And then team members, do you have any schools in which more than one athletic trainer works at that school and needs access to the same records? Or are you all by yourselves?
No, Dan and I are both at the high school, so.
Okay.
So yes.
All right, so this will be important for your account setup. One person has to be the lead and create the account. And then the other person gets added as a team member. So you both have access to the same information. So you guys aren't going to create, if you're both working at the same high school, you're not going to create your own account separately. One person is going to, so Trevor, if you create the account of the lead person, for example, then you, Trevor, would add Dan as a team member here. So
Okay.
we're going to click add team member. You're going to create this account for Dan, Trevor.
Okay.
You're going to create a password that he can change later. And you would leave these unchecked here at the bottom. So do you guys supervise Katie athletic training students? Are you preceptors?
Not right now, no.
Okay. If you were to be a preceptor in the future, you could add a student account, and that student can have their own login and do SOAP notes and do injury evaluations and do a lot. But instead of signing and locking your record, they would have an option send to preceptor, and then that would come to you and you could approve it.
Okay.
And so Katie students do not have full access to everything. They can't discharge an athlete, for example.
Okay.
The other thing is read-only access. So if you want to give your nurse or your AD or someone like that read-only access where they can view records but not change anything or edit, you could click that. So anyone that you check off as read-only access does not count as a user for pricing. So I forget the price I quoted you, but you guys were under the users anyway. But if someone was concerned about, can I add my school nurse just so you can see the records and is that going to affect my price? You just make them read-only, and they don't count as a user.
So is that where you could also, your coaches could access it because they were read-only access?
You wouldn't probably give them this level of access. The coaches access you could add through here. So if you go to coaches and staff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. Yep.
They can see portal information and basics, but they can't. If you add a coach this way, they can't get into your SOAP notes. So if you wanted a coach to be able to see your SOAP notes, you could add them that other way as a team member. But if you want to kind of limit them to just certain things to access to view the athlete information, you would add it here.
Okay.
And then treatment sign-in we covered. So I just want to quickly go back to a person. So let's say Jules comes in for an ankle sprain, and I want to send a text message to Jules later tonight. Reminder, ice your ankle tonight for 20 minutes and see me tomorrow at 3 p.m. You could send a message this way as well. So you can send text message here. You can choose the time. Let's say, you want it to be received at 7 p.m. rather tonight. So it'll delay, and you can say ice ankle here, ice your ankle 20 minutes, and see me tomorrow at 3. And then that would go out tonight at 7 p.m. to that athlete. Again, one way.
Cool.
All right.
And that was in add a message. Is that what that was again?
Yes, I went into Jules Granger's individual record and then hit add message here.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, we added something too for a message to be received upon treatment sign-in if you want it as well. So the next time they sign in, they could get a message from you as well, if you want it.
All right.
All right. So I think that's just about everything.
All
Um,
right.
so you two are at the high school. So then you have middle school athletes. Is that different athletic trainers other than you two guys?
Yes.
Yes, it'll be two different athletic trainers. Yeah.
And would they be sharing an account like you, or have their own middle school account?
I think we had set it up that they would each have their own middle school account, as what we had, because I think it was the pricing was, we got pricing for the high school and then had two additional schools, which was, I think was $100 for each additional school inside our account, is what I think we got quoted.
Right. So do you guys need access to the middle school account?
Well, it'd be great if that stuff could roll over into the high school, those students. But I mean, no, not really. We don't need access to it on a day-to-day basis. No.
Okay. Because if you did, let us know in advance. We could have it so that when you guys log in, you can select your high school or either of the two middle schools if you wanted access to it. We would just need to know that in advance, and we would set you guys up. And then
Okay.
you see this change schools here. This test account is set up for multiple schools. You could just change schools midway through. But if I go back to
Well, that might be good for us if we pull the data from the middle school. Then we can do that.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah.
so if you click athletic trainers here, and I'm signing into the test account. If you had multiple schools, you would have a box here for your high school and then two other boxes next to it for your middle school. If you wanted to have a selection every time you sign in.
Yeah, that's a good point of doing that so we can do the management of the yearly reports and stuff. How does that work from the standpoint, like Dan said, where the kids are going to get their injury in the middle school, and then we're going to obviously see those kids because we all funnel to the same high school at this point. How will that work for us to continue their management process, or will they have to kind of start all over as a new student athlete?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I have to ask Brandon that one. I'm sure there's a way to transfer their data to the high school
Okay.
as a high schooler now. If you
That
have,
would be right. That would be nice to be able to continue to see, like, especially like their concussion management and things like that, is like, how many previous concussions that they had, things like that. Or, because a kid, how many times does a kid come in and they're like, which ankle did you sprain? I don't remember. It was one of them, but I can't remember. And, whatever. So just having that information we could follow up with and stuff would be really nice. So,
yeah, I'm sure we could do it. I think we've had that request before. I mean, at worst case scenario, you would just log in to the middle school account and go look it up.
be able to view it.
You
Okay.
want it transferred into the high school account. I think that probably would be possible, but I have to check with our coder about that one.
Yeah, I think probably when we're setting this stuff up, I think Dan and I probably definitely need to have access to the middle school stuff just from that standpoint of for the future treatment of, the high school athletes. So,
Okay, well, we just developed a new process for that, and it would have to make one of you guys what we call a regional manager. So let's say you, Dan, are the regional manager. We would give you the ability to add the schools and add your team members all together, and we have a video for that. We just signed a very large group, very complicated group in Alabama and Mississippi, 200 high schools where they have managers overseeing about 15 to 20 schools. So they
wow.
had to add their schools, and each regional manager needs access to every 15 or 20 of their schools. So it was a very complicated setup. So you guys would be pretty easy into that.
Yeah.
But you would have a regional manager set it up. One of you guys, again, is a point person, and then add the additional people in there.
Okay. All right.
So,
That sounds great.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
You guys keep going if you need to. I got to check out.
all right. Well, I just wanted to say you guys can,
Thanks, Dan.
if you want to email me, you can start your account now and start using it. I realize, you need board approval and things like that, but you get 60 days free. And,
Okay.
if you need that extended a little bit, it's no problem. But if you wanted to get using it, just shoot me an email and we'll set you up.
Okay.
Oh, perfect.
Perfect. And can you make sure you send Dan and I the link to the recording just so again we can follow up with the notes and stuff like that?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Thanks a lot.
Okay, guys. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.